From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornosky. So glad to be with you here across FM and AM, as well as our website, aneighborschoice.com. Perhaps you're watching on our Facebook or YouTube video live stream. Hello, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. Maybe you're listening to podcast affiliate channels that we're on, iTunes, Google, Podtail, with all these different platforms. Welcome you wherever you're listening or watching to another time together, where we're going to challenge sacred cows and toxic groupthink and look for the truth, no matter where it takes us. We have to be ready to pursue the truth, no matter what, and to pursue the truth with wisdom and discernment, not to cower back and say, I've seen too much. We have to be mindful of the content that we consume, mindful of the content, including in the news media. You know, I remember we had cut off cable news for years, and then I remember bringing it back in for a little time for some deal or something. They give you a trial or something. And just, you know, drawing back to that addiction that I had had years ago to watch cable news, because I'm a guy involved in political commentary. And just watching, this was years ago. I remember, we haven't had it in a long time, but I remember just, we had a little years away from cable news in the house, except for the clips you see online. And then we got it back for a little bit. And I just remember physically the feeling of the anxiety. You could just feel it because you'd had it out of your life. You just feel the anxiety when you watch that channel in the background, whatever channel, CNN, Fox News, whatever. They're constant. It just puts you on edge. Ugh, tension, drama. And it doesn't make you feel hopeful about the world, doesn't make you want to, you know, do amazing things, do great things, do huge, you know, courageous acts, you know, doesn't make you want to be a better person. It just makes it, you know, it draws you into that negative feedback loop. And then having it out again, you could just feel the difference. And of course, the problem is it's not just cable news now, because Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and those other platforms that imitate a TV mindset. That TV mindset is contagiously spreading through the TV imitation of Twitter, Facebook, Google. And by TV, I mean trying to curate and create an ivory tower of allowable thought, feelings, narratives, and blocking, banning, shadow banning, throttling. Someone said earlier they can't find my video except for in their playlist where they put it. And I'd like to hear from you. Maybe you can try typing in the title of, you know, this show. See if you can find it on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Try typing in, you know, I have tried to find, you know, because all of our daily radio broadcasts are ostensibly archived on our YouTube channel, David Gornosky. But every time I try to look up a past guest, like for example, I've interviewed Dr. Chris Palmer, who's a Harvard psychiatrist using ketogenic therapy, that is ketosis and other removal of certain toxic industrial foods for his patients in Harvard that have depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, other issues, and has dramatic impact just by having this dietary intervention. So much so that he's written about it and chronicled it in the highest possible ways. When I tried to type in Chris Palmer and the title of the show and my name and so forth, different things, can't find it on YouTube. Even though it's on YouTube, it's in the black hole. And I don't know why. I don't know how that works. If it's an algorithm, I don't know if they have a robot that says, a little script that YouTube says, that says, if anybody promotes anything outside of big pharma, make it never be found. or I don't know if maybe there's a 3-strike rule, because I think you can probably find other alternative ideas outside of big pharma on YouTube if you search for them. But maybe there's a 3-strike rule. Like if there's any channel, when we listen to the audio of their content, where they bash wars and they bash old outdated big pharma based medical paradigms, and they bash, what else? What's something else that maybe I criticize? The Federal Reserve. Maybe there's a 3 strikes rule. You know what I mean? Maybe that's how their little pathetic, insecure little frame works on these platforms. It's like, wait a second, he's criticizing perpetual war. Wait a second, he's saying we don't need to occupy Syria and do a regime change disaster, unleashing ISIS and Al Qaeda to help them take out the Syrian, national army and so forth. Okay, that strikes one. Number 2, listen to him. Oh my goodness, he's talking about using keto diet with a Harvard psychiatrist instead of getting people only on medication that just manages and masks symptoms. Oh, that's strike 2. Wait a second, he just bashed the Federal Reserve and he's promoting honest money, sound money. He's talking about interest rates being set by the Fed and how that's bad. That's 3 strikes. Send that channel to the hinterlands where it'll look like it's on YouTube for those who go through the jungle of however you guys come to this channel, but it won't be easily found. You're going to have a decoder ring to find this channel. Well, that's fine. That's why we're on radio. That's why we have FM and AM affiliates in major metro markets and continuing to grow there. That's why we have a booming podcast audience that doesn't need social media to have that podcast grow an audience. So we're just going to continue to bypass them and look at social media, TV type media oligarchs like Facebook and YouTube and Twitter as yesterday's news, who have Luddite worldviews. They don't like competition. They don't like diversity of thought. And apparently, they don't like you to have health freedom. They don't want you to know that there's an alternative besides medication to deal with chronic illnesses in this country, whether it's mental illnesses or physical illnesses. So when I present those doctors, Dr. David Diamond, professor at USF, who debunks the connection between saturated fat and heart disease, totally blows that pseudoscience ignorance out of the water. Or whether I have Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who shows the amazing results of using ketosis and ketogenic therapy alongside non-toxic generic drugs for late-stage cancers, and Dr. Thomas Seyfried at Boston College, when I have him on often, can't do that. When I have Scott Horton of antiwar.com, host of the Scott Horton Show, who is got amazing credentials when it comes to explaining in the foreign policy of our country, but he doesn't like war. I guess that's a no-no. The YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, they want the status quo, just like the TV did. Just like back before we had the digital age and the TV just kind of kept us stuck in old ideas, old narratives. Maybe that's what they're stuck on. But no matter what they try to do, the truth is more powerful. And the truth spreads faster and deeper in the hearts of human beings that encounter it than the false imitations of the truth. So even though lies and mythology, they may feel like always Goliath, if we're David, we'll be all right. If we have the truth on our side, that Goliath can be defeated with one tiny pebble of truth. And so the whole point of what the media does, corporate media, is that they intimidate us from even showing up to contest the truth through art and culture and media. See, that's the battle for them. They want to come out and their monopolies of Google, Twitter, Facebook, CBS, NBC, ABC, blah, 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 NPR, all that state media, they want to come out and say, hey, we've got the ideas. We're the official authorities. Our polls are impeccable. Our track record for telling you the truth about effective wars we need to be involved in is just unbelievably perfect. And look at how many of us we have and how many billions of dollars we have and how small you seem in comparison. And just like Goliath, the name of the game is to keep you from showing up on the battlefield of ideas in the first place. Because if they can intimidate you preemptively with their bluster, their gaslighting about medicine, gaslighting about nutrition, gaslighting about economics, gaslighting about culture and what a family is all about, gaslighting about the importance of nonviolence and trying to denigrate nonviolence. They can gaslight all day long, but the only way they win is if you don't show up to the battlefield. If you stay hidden in the anonymity of the crowd. But if you, like David in that story, have the courage to come out to battle and pursue the truth and stand with the truth, then that Goliath will be defeated. Through love, through the truth, conquering all lies, all backward ideas. Just a little bit of truth unleashed would take out an army of falsehoods. Just a little bit of truth aimed in the right direction for all to see destroys the fragile monsters and ivory towers that are erected all around us. I'm David Gronowski. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. Welcome to the program. More in just a moment. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski here. I saw this story just now as I'm doing the show, and I thought, it gave me a good thought. It says, it's at getpocket.com. It says 3 signs you're the toxic person in your workplace and what to do about it. And the subtitle is what caught my attention. It said, people tend to have a natural aversion to those who make it all about themselves. And when I heard that, I said, yeah, it's a good point. It's true. That's very true. That's a narrative that's there. And I thought about it, and I said, that sounds like the narrative that the media has used as one of the foundation points for how to convince half the country that Donald Trump just wasn't just a bad president, but he was an existential threat to democracy. They planted that so deeply in the minds of people. And I thought about it. I said, well, you can see why. Donald Trump leans into a taboo persona that you're not allowed to be in the West, where he blatantly says, I'm the man. I can fix it. That was his whole campaign. And he didn't turn that off when he won. He said, I'm the one that'll fix it. I'm the one that got the stock market. I'm the one that, does this and that. And he also tips his hat and shows, hey, that's actually you guys, but, I'm the guy. But him saying that, for people on a surface level of being able to discern, they say, well, he says it. And the media plays clips of him saying things like that. Therefore, he fits into the narrative of this article I just said. People tend to have a natural aversion to those who make it all about themselves. Well, Donald Trump, even in the debates in the last time, was always talking about, well, I did this and I could have made Obamacare fail, but I decided to do it good. And he just talks a little bit too open, and he kind of does make it all about himself with his mouth. But the actions of all politicians speaks louder than words. And the difference is that all the politicians on both sides of the aisle have always done it all about themselves. Everything they do is all about themselves. They're taking credit for every job that you create in the economy, for every act of courage that a soldier does in battle. And they get to count it as, oh, we won this battle because we decided to keep the troops there or add more troops or whatever. Whatever it is, politicians on both sides of the aisle, the very nature of what they do is take credit for things they didn't do, to make everything about them so that you can worship them as the hero that they want to be seen as in history. So there's no difference, really, between Donald Trump and the other politicians on this, except for that Donald Trump is honest in saying, hey, it's about me. And all the other politicians, listen to Joe Biden. Oh, we're going to go through a dark winter. Oh, my goodness, we're all in it together. I am your friend. I'm going to stack it with a bunch of people from Raytheon and all these giant military industrial corporations. That's what's going to be in your Secretary of State. That's what's going to be in your Secretary of Defense. All the stuff that that both sides have repudiated since the days of George W. Bush. They repudiated it by getting Obama. They repudiated it by getting Donald Trump. He was blocked, apparently, by his own bureaucrats who didn't want to enforce the withdrawal of troops in Syria and Afghanistan and so forth, time and time again. And here goes Biden saying, oh, it's going to be fine. We're going to have a great time because I'm going to give you these lullaby language. I'm going to give you this lullaby rhetoric, and I'm going to stick all the crooks that you guys have been rejecting over and over and over again. But there's something about some human beings, and I'm trying to figure it out, and I have some ideas, but I'd love to hear yours, for real. I really would, to help us figure out how to solve this. There's something about human beings that they love to be lied to. They love to be lulled into a lullaby by wicked, evil people. Because for me, I think it's pretty clear. I don't want a king like all the people in America, or not all the people, but the voters want. They want a big government. They don't want to cut anything. They want that, right? Both sides kind of want it to various degrees. Obviously, in the Republican Party movement, the conservative movement, there's a little bit more of a diversity of thought. You can actually have a discussion without being blocked from your bank account. But there's a general kind of love of state coercion and centralization, right? But I just can't understand how people who are so obsessed with hating Trump as this Grinch, they need him to be their boogeyman, to be their scapegoat. How in the world can words hurt you more than actions? I just can't get my head around that, except for my study of anthropology and mythology says, in the past, ancient societies, the priests would go about sacrifice. They would sacrifice a human or an animal or something for the greater good, and they would justify it as right and necessary through mythology, which is a story with symbols that tries to justify the action, right? And the one thing you wouldn't do is question the mythology. You don't question the sacred religion of any community in the ancient world. You don't question it. So when I think about it, that's how I connect those two thoughts. I think, okay, in the ancient world, we see over and over again societies that go along with wicked violence that's ugly and awful, the way they treat people, sacrificing people for this, banishing somebody into the desert for this, killing this young kid for the Inca god or the Aztec god or the German god. Over and over again, you see these horrible things, and you're like, but what did they say when you ask them in history? If you go back in history, they'll say, well, the gods told us to. They'll say this ancient text or this oral tradition that our ancestors gave us says that we have to do this to keep society alive, or else gods will be mad at us. And so that's what I connected. And I say, well, that might be the connection between today's modern folks that are like, I'd rather have Biden who's going to sweet talk me and bomb everybody into oblivion and lock everybody up like they want to do for lockdowns. If you're out on curfew, videos of people getting hit by police, mobbed down because they're out on curfew. What in the world? This is not America. Nobody wants this. And how can you justify this except for some mythology of language called political correctness, or wokeness is the new fundamentalist version of it, that justifies doing awful things as long as you stay true to the script. So we don't call it mythology today, as the ancestors of ancient societies did. We call it being woke. We call it being politically correct. We call it being patriotic, presidential. But at the end of the day, it functions as the same thing, which is to obfuscate the moral responsibility of the bad choices that we consent to and support and champion sometimes in our society. The unnecessary wars, the sanctions, the foreign aid to crooked dictators, the debt, the messing up of our healthcare, the restrictions of our businesses, the crippling of our regulations that are put onto us. All of these things are hidden by the same language, the same word games that we've had for thousands of years in mythology. We'll unpack this in just a moment. Stay with us.
Ronald Reagan would turn over in his grave if he saw what's going on today.
Crazy things are happening.
You cannot be afraid. You've got to stand up for what you believe is right.
One thing is for sure.
You can't trust anybody.
For talk, news, and information, you can count on us.
Enough is enough. I mean, I almost blew a gasket.
It's good for the country.
I know what I'm talking about. A lot of wackos out there.
Your connection to talk about it. News Talk 1040, WHPO.
On Wall Street, the closing bell ushering in a historic marker. President Trump earlier in the day holding a last-second briefing for a victory lap.
The stock market's just broken 30,000. Never been broken, that number. That's a sacred number, 30,000. Nobody thought they'd ever see it. That's the 9th time since the beginning of 2020. And it's the 48th time that we've broken records during the Trump administration.
But there are several factors giving a boost to investor confidence.
While President Trump appeared to take credit for the Dow passing 30,000 points, Aviva Investors U.S. Equities head Susan Schmidt suggested other reasons.
We've had a very strong third quarter earnings season. We've had positive news around development of vaccines, and we have clarity around the administration's transfer of power.
Markets rise and fall with every administration. President-elect Joe Biden didn't mention it as he announced his cabinet picks.
ABC's Andy Field. I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Hello, David Gronowski here. You're listening to a program on FM, AM, podcast, or video stream called A Neighbor's Choice. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. So I've been connecting this idea, if you've just joined in, and make sure, hey, by the way, save it to this station, wherever you're listening. We have many affiliates that we're growing that list. Every day we're working to expand the program. And I got into this discussion because I was talking about, first of all, how it's hard to find our content on YouTube. You got to search. It's like a decoder ring. And we get comments all the time. I can't find you. I subscribe to you. Here's another just posted. Luca on YouTube says, and your channel is undoubtedly in the shadows of the YouTube algorithms. Your live stream is difficult to come by, and I am a subscriber. That's exactly right. And again, maybe if you want to be professional and above board, you got to say, well, maybe it's just, some kind of technical glitch, who knows? But when you can't even type in, I'm telling you, type in anybody I've had on, just about, because I have a lot of scientists and doctors and experts and you name it. You type these names in with my name, because I'm the host of the show. I try to make it easy on you, put both names into YouTube and search it, and you can't find it. We talked about this a lot with Dr. Michael Assanti, Salford University Chair of Translational Medicine in England, who did a fantastic interview with me, deep dive into his work using antibiotics generic antibiotics to treat cancer stem cells at a very effective rate. And you can't, I don't even know if it's still there, but my video's up, but you can't find it. You got to have a direct link from me or our website, aneighborschoice.com. And if we embed the video, you can play it there. I don't know if they give us a view count on that or what, but you can watch it that way, or if you get a direct link. But it's like a invitation only club, the way YouTube has it locked down. And so the only thing I can surmise is they don't like what we have to say. They're scared of it. So they're Goliath. They're a fragile giant. And the only way this fragile giant can stand up to the truth is if we're afraid to meet them on the battlefield of thought. If we cower into the crowd and say, that's a big, scary giant, I don't think I stand a chance. There's a lot of people like me who have values and ideas like mine, but they can't say anything because they're paralyzed by fear. For whatever reason, maybe they live in a very radical, nihilistic city or country, and they feel like they don't have a support system to have their back if they speak up and keep their head out of the crowd. Maybe they have a job that they feel is very politically correct in its dogma, very fake, in other words, and the management, and they're afraid of being persecuted for expressing their mind. Can you imagine that? It just blows my mind that these people, if you don't fit into their mold, if you're disagreeing with any bit of their dogma, you're dead to them. They want to make you unemployed. For example, my worldview that I try to communicate on this program is all about nonviolence and solving problems and loving our neighbor as ourselves. That's not allowed. It's not allowed. That's hateful for a lot of folks. It's sad, because they're more obsessed with words than they are reality. Right? They're more obsessed with the language, with Joe Biden keeping the script that for some reason they want to hear. There's a lot of folks, they just want to hear, it's okay. I'm your president, and we're working to make our society more inclusive. Bomb, 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 bombs are going off, right? And but Obama and Joe Biden, they sing to me. They say, well, I'm here to make us more inclusive, like a lullaby. And there's a certain percentage of the population that seems to be very affected by that. Well, Trump says it's all about him, so therefore he's selfish. But Biden, who spent 50 years making it all about him by his actions, but he stays on script. Oh, that's the way it should be. That's a sacred president. We have a religion on hand. Do you see why I call the state a religion? Look at this. How can you explain this other than a cult? You hear about people in cults and you're like, how in the world are you sticking with that cult? They want you to do this, that. You can't talk to this person. You can't talk to that person. You got to do this ritual, that ritual. This is weird. That's creepy. I saw that show with the show about the Branch Davidians, and it was terrible what the government did. But it was also, you see the stuff that's allegedly being asked of these guys to be a part of this. And you're like, aren't you going to say it's time to leave? And I guess some of them did, but many others were buying into the cult. No matter how much crazy, awful things were being asked of them, they were sticking to the old time religion. And that's what happens with statism, the worship of the state, worship of man's power, the worship of ideology, especially the politically correct version that we have infecting the West for some time. Because it more effectively imitates Christianity's concern for victims, it's a much harder habit to kick. And that's exactly what political correctness and the woke stuff does. They imitate Christianity's concern for victims. And the reason that's so effective is because our society is very deeply haunted by what Jesus did on the cross to unleash and unveil that which was hidden since the foundation of the world, namely the way in which human societies keep the peace through lie and accusation and scapegoating and sacrificing some for the greater good. Jesus unveiled that, and he showed us how to get out. And so when I look at this stuff, that's the only thing that can explain to me what's animating. I mean, think about it. What does it have to be? I don't know if it's a staff or just an algorithm, but just imagine you're one of those people working at Facebook or Twitter or whatever, YouTube. And you talk to that person, you say, do you care about police brutality? Yes. Do you care about stopping imperial never-ending war? Yes. So why are you trying to shadow ban David Gronowski's program, A Neighbor's Choice, when he's working every day to interact with folks, to help them, show them and encourage them to be anti-war, to be against endless wars, and to be against over policing and victimless crimes? Why would you want to shadow ban that? And I wonder what their reaction would be. I hope that if you had a one-on-one conversation, whoever is writing the script for how to censor a show like this, I hope that if I could have that one-on-one conversation, that we could make some progress. Because when you pull people out of a crowd, it's harder for them to be stuck in that bystander effect, isn't it? It's harder for them to kind of just go along with stupid, bad, hateful stuff. It seems to me that if someone really cares about social justice, as I'm sure some of the employees at Facebook and Twitter and Google who are behind these shadow bans or throttling, or I don't care what it is, it seems like if they stopped and thought about it for a second and said, wait a second, I don't have to agree with everything this guy says, but hey, look at what he's good at. I mean, he's against victimless crime laws. We need to get rid of that. That's hurting people. A lot of people are being torn apart. Mass incarceration is a problem. He's a champion of stopping the mass incarceration, separation of families from their children for nonviolent first time offense and stuff like this. He's against mass surveillance. I'm against that too. He's against perpetual occupation of countries around the world. I'm against that too. I'm progressive. Well, maybe I don't agree with him on his religion. I hate Christianity, and he sounds like a Christian, so I don't like that. And maybe he doesn't. Maybe they say, hey, you know what? I think he's a little old fashioned when it comes to, family and stuff like that. I like maybe the YouTube guy that censors this video or is involved in that department. Maybe they like, four men and 3 women, or 5 men and 6 women all rotating around. Maybe they like that. They read it in a book somewhere. They thought that was a cool way to run a family. And maybe they don't like that I believe in husband and wife and stuff like that. Maybe that's old fashioned. But if you're smart for one moment, you might say, hey, if this guy isn't shadow banned, maybe he can influence people that I don't like and I don't want to have nothing to do with, like Christians or conservatives or whatever. Maybe if we let David do his thing, yeah, he's not going to accept, polyamory or whatever all this stuff is, but maybe he'll help move the needle where we are in agreement. Maybe he'll help soften demographics that we don't want to have anything to do with. Maybe he'll make them less gung-ho about locking away everybody and throwing away the key, So you would think that people, just a little bit of self-awareness, could figure that out. And maybe that's happening. I don't know. I don't know. I don't care enough to really pursue the thought and find out. But it is interesting, right? Just as a thought experiment to think, what does it take to get folks out of that hive mind, to be so hateful that they want to, because we have people calling into this program who are in prison for life under Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton's laws. Many of these people are people of color. You would think that a Google or YouTube employee would say, why would I ever dare to silence vulnerable people, victims of mass incarceration? Why would I silence them by making it difficult for people to find David's channel? How hateful and racist is that? That's what YouTube and Google are doing. That's so disgusting to me, to want to silence anybody. But if they talk about being on YouTube champions of social justice and champions of racial issues, why would they want to silence a program that gives a platform to people of color who have been victimized by a mass incarceration system that's gone too wild and crazy? Why would you silence them? The only thing I can conclude is they don't know what they're doing, that they're blind by the groupthink, and that stories and narratives and language is more important than real results. So how do we help get people out of that? I'm not sure, but we have to keep thinking about it. I've suggested we have to tell the story of victims, but if they won't even listen, they want to delete the voices of victims that we have on this program from having a platform on their channels. I don't know. I don't know how we can have that conversation. But we have to try, we have to give it a shot. We can't just get stuck in trench warfare or just hunker down into a tribe and just say, that's it. It's got to be better than that. We've got to do better than that. We've got to be able to figure out how to scratch the itch that folks that work at YouTube and Google and Facebook and Twitter, the itch that they have for justice or whatever, to be able to have a conversation where we can show them, look, let's work together. Let's agree to disagree on what percentage that is, and let's work together on the massive areas we can have success in. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. I may be assuming a lot, and that's okay. I know I am. I don't think that the people who shadow banned this channel, if that's what's going on YouTube, are pro Dick Cheney foreign policy. I think most of them are old enough to have been around during the Iraq War. It's still going on to some degree now. They know how lying the media can be. They know how devious both parties are for never stopping a war once it started because it's just too lucrative, apparently, unfortunately. They know that. Why can't they act on it? We have to encourage them. We have to encourage the people at the top, too, because that's another thing. If we can't, because a lot of people imitate, and if the people that own these platforms, YouTube and whatever, Twitter, if I don't use Twitter, but for this show, if the people at the top of these companies have no interest in being honest, no interest in challenging big pharma paradigms of health or big bank paradigms of Federal Reserve manipulation of currency, if they have no interest in that and they want to do everything they can to cheat and rig the conversation to help the powerful, then those who are under them in these companies will probably mostly just fall in line with the terrible behavior and bigoted backwards ideas that are shared by the people at the top. But as I said before, the way this toxic groupthink wins is by intimidating folks like you to stay in the crowd and not meet them on the battlefield of ideas and on the battlefield of art. That's more important, because you can argue all day long, you won't change people. But if you show them good art that gets them in their heart, that moves them on a deep level, you can do way more than a logical argument. Logical argument appeals to the neocortex, but things that are dealing with passion and desire and those symbolic things that are found in good art, that's dealing with the limbic part of our brain or whatever, the more deeper rooted primal part of who we are. That's dealing more in what we call subconscious area of feeling and desire. So we need to make good art, and we need to not be afraid of it. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Granosky. Take a quick break and return in just a second. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Granosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Not ready to go to your favorite seafood restaurant? Get the highest quality fish for less? delivered straight to your door by Fast Fresh Seafood. Order our fresh hog snapper, grouper, mahi, and more. They're boneless, skinless, flash frozen the same day, and individually vacuum wrapped. Pick the size filet you want, the amount you want, and checkout's easy at fastfreshseafood.com. The best thing, every fish is on sale. Fastfreshseafood.com. Caught fresh for you, delivered straight to you. Stay home and stay safe.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm your host, David Granosky. Looking at comments online, Reed says, thanks to Jesus, we were able to see these things through the prism of love, whereas the critical race theorist is only able to see these things through the prism of race. The tech overlords possess zero self-awareness, Reed goes on. They're either surprised to find out they're biased and live in a leftist bubble, or they're cynically trying to expand that bubble to amass influence. But there has to be a way to beat this Goliath hive mind. I don't think they're a Goliath in terms of deep ideas and commitment to truth. I don't even think they're a Goliath in terms of the numbers of, the people in America that are committed to their elaborate self-justification for coercion and violence from the state and in the streets, if necessary, to intimidate people to submit to their ideology that they want the state to look like. But there's got to be a way to have a concerted effort to help pull people more and more out of this hive mind. And you got the walk away movement, but the walk away movement, I've had the people on from that, but they're more focused, I guess, on getting people out of the Democrat Party and kind of towards Trump or whatever. And they're good about saying it's not, from what I've heard, the people that have involved with that, they're not saying you got to vote Republican or whatever. They just say, just walk away from the Democrat Party. That's a step, I guess, but it's deeper than that. We got to get to the cultural thing that allows so much of this state worship of power to go unchecked by people who are drawn to this religion. Time and time again, they're abused by the same faces. You see John Kerry's face. Lord have mercy. We had to see this face again. John Kerry. Can't you give us something new? It's supposed to be hope and change, right? Hope and change part 10,000. These same old, boring, lame, backwards, ignorant people who do nothing but transact money from one billionaire to the next, using their government, using our government to make a killing off of people for terrible rigged markets that they help put together. They say there's got to be a critical point where folks can just unplug from this. You're going to vote for, you don't have to vote for anybody in particular. Just stop enabling and going along with this charade to believe that because Donald Trump says it's all about himself, therefore he's different from the politicians like Biden and Kamala Harris who don't openly say, yeah, I'm doing this because I'm great. But they just stay on script, but their actions show that they're ragingly all about themselves at your expense. And it's like, how can you not see that? It's so annoying. If Barack Obama cared 1 ounce or iota for civilization and decency, like he was saying, I'm for civility. We need to have civility. We need to have decency. This Trump guy is just an existential threat to democracy, blah, 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 blah. Barack Obama had the presidency in 2008. He had a huge mandate for massive hope and change. He didn't end the wars. He expanded them. He didn't persecute and prosecute those who had tortured with Bush. He let it go and enabled it. He surveilled people. He didn't diminish Bush's surveillance. He expanded it against his political adversaries. He didn't create friendliness across the aisle. He weaponized the IRS to persecute people who had different opinions than he did. He didn't do a thing about criminal justice. He had the House, he had the Senate, unlike lying Joe Biden, who said, oh no, the Republicans had the Congress. And Trump, because he's always thinking about himself, doesn't bother to think, hey, actually you didn't. He's just, like, well, I do this. Okay, that's fine, great. But meanwhile, Biden and these guys are doing it all about themselves and doing worse in terms of expanding wars and expanding big pharma power and expanding mass incarceration than Trump did in his time in office. But because they stay on script, gullible people by the millions apparently are like, oh, that's fine. They're sophisticated, they're noble. It's not noble. It's not noble to sacrifice some for the greater good. It's not noble to bomb people who are not doing anything to start a war with you. That's not noble. It's not noble to surveil people's opponents. There's nothing good or decent or presidential or sacred about any of that stuff. It's ugly, it's awful, it's profane, it's disgusting, and we all know it. And we've got to be able to deprogram people. We have to be able to exorcise these foul spirits of groupthink out of our hearts. Not to win an election, but to win a civilization. To heal our culture. To have a renaissance where we can get along together without going to politics to tear each other apart for false, arbitrary differences. And that's the reason why those who are doubling down in this messianic state religion of political correctness, that's why they have to emphasize arbitrary differences like race. Because we're more and more alike than ever before. Because of the power of freedom and the power of the cross to move us away from sacrificial hierarchies, we've got more fluidity in terms of the ability to succeed and get along and achieve things and have the American dream or whatever. We have fluidity of being able to move upwards in the social hierarchy than we've ever had before. And so this emphasis on external differentiation, these race and all these things, are all about hiding how close and similar we all are. That's what's going on. We have to be able to have an honest dialogue with those who are caught up in this violent groupthink. We have to be able to name the victims of the regulations, the wars, the sanctions that happen every day for years and years and decades. And we got to repent of it. We have to turn our minds and our hearts away from this stuff. We got to let go of it. We got to transform our perspective and move it away from this incessant need to go along with the crowd. Soren Kierkegaard said, the crowd is a lie. We need to seek the truth. We need to arm ourselves with the truth and courage and step out of the lie and into the light. The master of history did it. You don't have to be afraid. The master of reality itself already showed us how to do it. You don't have to be scared. If God is for you, who can be against you? I'm David Gronowski. We'll be back in just a moment. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Godspeed.
Your home for news, talk, and